this morning at this time, we're joining our guest in person of Ambassador Richard Solomon, who is a ECOWAS Youth Ambassador and Public Affairs Analyst, as we discuss employee rights and protection today. Good morning, Ambassador Richard Solomon. Thank you for joining us on the Breakfast Cafe. Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? I cannot hear Ambassador Richard Solomon while we're trying to, get that audio work done so that we can have his audio. This conversation is something very, very important, employee right and protection. It is something that a lot of people don't even know about. If you ask some people what is the meaning of employee right and protection, they don't even know. They don't even know that there are laws that guide them as employees. They don't know there are certain benefits. They don't know there are certain things that should come to them naturally, just by being employees.
For example, freedom of association. You have a right to be a member of a union or not as an employee. But some people don't know that. I've been in a place where there was an outright ban on unionism. But it's legal for you to have unions in your place of work if you want to. It's freedom of association and it's legal. Just like you said, some people don't even know these things. I mean, in fact, I'm learning some things right now. Kudos to the producer,
right,
who is bringing out some of these things. So it's very good to be knowledgeable about our rights, so that you can know what to do, when to do it, and so that you know what not to do so you don't get kicked out.
Right. Yeah. But just so you understand better, employee rights are a set of protections and benefits that employees are entitled to under law. Now, these rights vary from country to country, but typically include the right to a safe and healthy workplace, the right to a minimum wage, the right to overtime pay, the right to unionize, and the right to take legal action against an employer. I'll hold my thoughts there. In a climate like Nigeria, taking legal action against your employer, have you ever seen a case like that fall through?
I've never seen.
Most people don't even speak up.
But some people don't even know they can do this. Yeah, but the thing is, some people are scared of doing it because of victimization.
And loss of their job.
Absolutely, loss of their job and victimization. These employers have their own unions, and then they might blacklist you, and then getting a job becomes an issue in a particular place. So this kind of things, will scare people from doing it. But it's something we should know we can do.
That's why we're bringing all of this to you. Many countries have their laws that protect employees from discrimination and harassment in the workplace. Every employment protection law and regulation deal with the rights of employees, including the right to advance notice of termination, the right to the redundancy payment upon termination, rights to leave for maternity, disability, and other medical issue, amongst others. There are a number of legal aspects of employee rights, and the most important right is the right to freedom of association, as Vivian said earlier, which means that employees have the right to join or not to join a union. Employees also have the right to collective bargaining, which means they can negotiate with their employer over wages and working conditions. Employees are protected from discrimination and harassment in the workplace, and they have a right to a safe and healthy workplace. They also have the right to receive fair wages. And finally, employees have a right to file a complaint if they believe their rights have been violated. Now that we've brought you all of these details, it will help you see that, okay, there are certain things that you are naturally entitled to, and if you find someone telling you they are doing you a favor by doing these things that have been stated under the law here, it is just your right. But we have Ambassador Richard Solomon back on the line this morning. Thank you for joining us on the Breakfast Cafe this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, we can hear you now. We can hear you clearly. Talking about employee rights and protection, Vivian and I just gave a brief on what it is, but you are an expert in that field. So bring us up to speed. When we talk about employee rights and protection, what are some of the key factors we need to look out for?
Thank you so much for having me once again.
Yeah.
I am Ambassador Richard Solomon. I'm an ECOWAS Youth Ambassador and a Public Affairs Analyst.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for bringing up such wonderful conversation that that is concerning employee and the employer rights in Nigeria. Over times it has come to our notice that employees in Nigeria do suffer from their employers, and it is because most of these employees do not know some of those rights that is available to them under the Nigerian Constitution and also under the employment and labor jurisprudence. So when we are talking about employee and employer rights, the employees have so many rights, a lot of them, ranging from, there should be no discrimination. The Constitution of Nigeria 1999 provides in Section 60, Section 42 particularly, that no citizen of Nigeria, in as much as you are a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you should not be discriminated against on the basis of religion, on the basis of sex, whether you are male, whether or not you are female, whether or not you are Igbo, whether or not you are Yoruba. Nigeria is one indivisible and indissoluble entity, and it is called the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thus, once you're a citizen of Nigeria, you have every right, under the Constitution. And when you're talking about employee rights, there are a lot of them. They should be properly paid. Their wages should be paid. They should have leave at their workplace. They should also, be given proper remuneration. When their appointment is to be terminated, they are to be informed, and the employer is to give a valid reason for the termination of such employment. So there are varieties of rights that the employees have in our Nigerian Constitution.
There, because people don't know about it. Why is there little or no publicity about it? And a lot of people are, suffering at their place of work because they don't even know what are the strategies. You're an ECOWAS Youth Ambassador. What are some of the strategies that is being rolled out to ensure that people are well sensitized on these their rights and benefits?
Thank you very much. You see, as well as I'm an ECOWAS Youth Ambassador, I'm also let me say a student of law. So there is a saying in law, it is a legal maxim: ignorantia facit nocet, ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of fact excuses, but ignorance of the law is not an excuse, so to put. Now, when you're talking about sensitization, you see, as Nigerian citizens, when you're talking about employer and employee, citizens must, as a matter of fact, be aware of their rights. If you are not aware of your rights, as we have the law, the framework of the law is to guide us. It is to guide us. It is to regulate our conduct in the society. But you see, we have two sides to it. There are some people that are going to use that particular law that we have to their benefit, and they're also going to use that law against you. So an employer now who has employed you, who wants to terminate your appointment without a valid reason, is going to do what? To ensure that, okay, you do not have the legal framework to your backing. So as citizens of Nigeria, we need from today to be abreast of these laws. What are the laws available to me? And one of those problems that we have in Nigeria is all of us are entitled to a lawyer. If you do not know some of these laws, you should get a lawyer. Your lawyer will be in the best position to navigate you, to put you through some of the nuances, some of the rights available to you.
Let me interrupt you for a bit. Let me interrupt you for a bit.
I'm not saying there should not be sensitizations, but as workers in Nigeria, you should have a lawyer who is going to sensitize you on your rights, who is going to give you some of the laws available to you.
Something very interesting. Let me interrupt you for a bit. Just before we move on from that, you talked about how we must be entitled to a lawyer. You should have a lawyer. How easy is it to get a lawyer? You have to have money. You would at least pay the lawyer, or does the law stipulate that you can have a lawyer and you're not paying? Because we know the cost of it. You're a law student.
There's pro bono, right? Does it fall under the pro bono, as a law? The question.
Okay, thank you very much. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in Chapter 4, that is where we have the fundamental human rights of citizens. And now, under Section 36 of that particular Constitution, where we have the right to fair hearing, a particular provision of Section 36 of the Federal Republic of Nigeria Constitution 1999 states that every Nigerian citizen, have the right to lawyer. You have the right to a lawyer. But now we are talking about employer rights. What we are saying is that for you to be able to get a lawyer free of charge, is that you must be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you as a person, you are either not working or the money you are earning is not even sustainable for yourself. So in that situation, you do not have any means. So when they've seen that, okay, you do not have any means at all, the government is going to come in, they are going to get you a lawyer. And there are some human rights personalities that would say, oh, they are just interested in your case. We have the right pro bono. They can just decide, okay, we are going to take up your case for you free of charge. That is why human rights organizations, civil organizations, amnesty organizations, some of these organizations are in place for them to help the right of citizens, for them to help citizens so as to ensure that their rights are not being trampled upon. But as citizens of Nigeria, we have the right to lawyer. However, that is on the basis that, oh, you do not have the means of livelihood, or when you have the means of livelihood, that money that you're earning, that wage they are winning is not even enough for you to even get a lawyer. It is on that basis that, oh, somebody cannot come in or the government cannot provide you a lawyer. But I'm talking for, those people, those persons that they are fit, they have the financial means to get a lawyer and still do not have a lawyer. So for those people who do not have the financial means to get a lawyer, they should be able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that they do not have the financial means. The money they are earning is not even enough for them to survive. And, on that basis, they can now get a lawyer. However, there are human rights organizations, civil organizations, amnesty organizations, human rights lawyers, human rights personalities who take up cases for people on pro bono, who are very much interested in fighting for the rights of, the citizens.
Okay. Well said. Let me come in here, right? Putting a human face to this topic. For me, a toxic environment makes it almost impossible for me to work. And I just discovered now that it is an illegality. Now, let me come to you, right? What are some common violations of employee rights, that you've seen in your own experience and the experiences of your friends and relatives?
Thank you very much. One of those ways that I've seen over time is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And one of those laws, we have two laws guiding this particular thing which I'm about to say. We have the Factories Act 2004, and we have the Employees Compensation Act of 2010. The Factories Act of 2004 and the Employees Compensation Act of 2010 the Factories Act provides that every workplace must be safe for the workers to work. So in a situation wherein we have a domestic worker working for a bakery or working for a company, working for a bottled water or a sachet water company, and one of these machine or equipment at which they use cut off the hand of somebody or one of the employees' hands, these people are entitled to compensation. That is what the Employees Compensation Act 2010 states. But it is quite disheartening and lugubrious that in Nigeria we have some of these employees suffer. They suffer greatly. I've seen instances where people work with a company, they work with industry, they work with factories, they have one accident, one injury, one bodily harm, and there is no proper compensation for it. It is very wrong. And the Employees Compensation Act states that as an employee, all you have to do to prove is what? You should tell your employer 14 days after that injury might have occurred to you. You should inform your employer. Once you inform your employer, the employer is within 7 days. Within 7 days, direct it to a board. There is a board for it. The board is called the Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund Management Board. The board is basically to enforce the compensation of employees. So the employer is to direct it to that board, and the board is going to have adequate compensation for victims of bodily harm, accidents, injuries during the course of employment. So one of those things that I've noted, particularly as a person, is people who suffer injury during the course of employment do not get proper compensation for it. And our law has provided for that victims of employees who have suffered injury, bodily harm, accidents during the course of employment are entitled to compensation.
All right. Okay, thank you for your thoughts. Do not forget that you can be a part of the conversation. Do well to call us 0812 1820154. You want to share your experience on this issue, employee rights and protection, or you have any question for our guests, we'll definitely take your calls. Now, let me ask you, one of the major things that people like is protection. This is what I mean. For people that have called out their employers, I would use this word, what are some of the legal protections that are in place for whistleblowers or those that can call out their employers over unethical or illegal conduct in their workplace? What are some of the legal provisions and protections that are in place for them?
Okay, if I got that clearly, you are asking about people or employers who terminate the employment of their employees without valid reason.
No, this is my question. What are the legal provisions that are in place for employees that call out their employers over illegal and unethical conduct in the workplace? What are the laws that protect them? What are some of these legal provisions that are in place for them?
Oh, thank you very much for that beautiful one. So, there are a lot of available laws to the employee. Number one, we have the Labor Act. Number two, we have the Employment Compensation Act. Apart from the employment, let me briefly share that, for instance, in Nigeria, if an employer terminates the employment of an employee without a valid reason, the employee whose appointment has been terminated by the employer has the Labor Act and has the Nigerian Constitution on his side, and has every right to sue the employer based on the basis of the termination of his or her appointment without valid reason.
That's my question. That's my question. So, Ambassador Richard Solomon, so my question is, when they sue or call out their employer, what are the laws that protect them? Sometimes we see people are scared to do these things because they will lose their job, and they might be, it might be difficult for them to get jobs elsewhere. What are the laws that guide them when they actually go out after these employers over this acts that they carry out against them?
Okay, thank you very much. So, number one, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, is the ground law which guides us. And the provision of that Constitution, Section 1, subsection 1 states, the Constitution is supreme, and its provisions shall have binding force on all persons and authorities throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So, primarily, number one law, the ground norm, which is available for employees, is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Apart from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we now have some other laws. Some of these other laws.
I'm so sorry. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Olaolu, yeah?
Yes, from Anthony.
From Anthony. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead with your contribution.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. All right. So good morning to Vivian. Good morning to Sarah. Good morning to Ambassador.
Good morning.
And I would like to ask two questions in particular, one of which has been asked by Sarah earlier, and that's which of these laws the employee is being covered by, but Sarah asked that earlier. So the second one is, okay, can we say that during the course of employment, the reason the employee don't see the compensation is due to the time frame it takes for the compensation to come in? Now, when Ambassador was speaking earlier, he mentioned a board or a body of which the employer will report to, so that they can take reasonable actions for the compensation to come in for the employee. So I'm asking that, what time frame does it take for this compensation to come in? Now, I believe that some of these results of compensation, when the compensation is on, it can be delayed for a particular period, and then before you know, it's off the book. Now, so many reports would have gone in. We know how Nigerian system works. So many reports would have gone in, and then we expect a quick response to these things. We expect quick investigation to our but then these things can be swept under the book, and before you know, action is taken. So what's the time frame for this compensation, and how does the law support it?
Thank you, Olaolu from Anthony. Do we still have Ambassador Richard Solomon on the line? He was asking. So if you got Laolu's question, Laolu is asking, what is the time frame for this compensation period? How long does it take? So it's not something that is swept under the carpet. And you're still answering the question on the laws that guide employees when they report on ethical behavior of their employers.
Thank you so much. Just to briefly answer Olaolu, for the enforcement of compensation for victims who have suffered damages or who have suffered injury at their workplace, there are two available remedies available for them. Number one is either to take it to the Nigeria Industrial Court, which is the court that will take, over labor matters in Nigeria, or that they take it to that board which I mentioned, which is the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund Management Board. So the victim now is going to take advice from the counsel, the lawyer, on which one is going to be faster. Is it to take it to the board, or is it to take it through the Nigeria Industrial Court? However, most times in Nigeria, we have seen cases where, court judgment or court decision takes time. You could start a case in 2018, and before you get judgment, there might be, 6 years, 7 years, And I think, personally, for me, I think the best way to navigate this thing through is taking it to the board. The board is going to sit on it, ensure that, okay, they have seen that, oh, you actually suffered that accident, that injury during the course of employment. Once you're able to prove that you suffered that injury or damage during the course of employment, the board is going to sit on it and give you adequate compensation. What you have to do as a person who has suffered that damage is to ensure that you complain 14 days from that incident. 14 days. It must not be more than 14 days. And when you want to complain, you give your name, you give your place of work, you give the nature of the accident which has happened to you. Once you complain to your employer, 14 days, your employer within 7 days is to direct it to that board, which I mentioned. So, personally, I think that the best way to navigate it through is through the board. Or it is only if and only if, assuming without conceding, that your lawyer or, you are sure that the court is going to sit on it very fast and give you judgment. But personally, because of the way we have seen it in Nigeria, where in the court, somehow delay judgment. And, sometimes they say, justice delayed is justice denied. So for it not to be in that instance of justice delayed is justice denied, you should take it through the board. The board will sit on it. You are going to prove that it happened during the course of employment, and the board is going to ensure that you have adequate compensation. So to answer Olaolu, as a victim, you have 14 days. The employer has 7 days. So it is either you take it to the Nigeria Industrial Court, or you take it to the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund Management Board for, the enforcement of your rights, which you have under the Employees Compensation Act of 2010.
Ambassador Richard Solomon, so many questions to ask you, so many, but we don't have the luxury of time. But I assure you, we're going to have you join us again very soon to answer the questions on the minds of many Nigerians. We'll have ample time to discuss this with you, but right now we have to wrap up the conversation with you because of our time. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much.
It's been a delight. All right, that was a conversation with Ambassador Richard Solomon, ECOWAS Youth Ambassador and Public Affairs Analyst on Employees' Right and Protection. And like I said earlier, we're definitely going to have him again because so many questions. And, he didn't really conclude on Olaolu's question. He asked, and then he also did not answer the
whistleblower one.
Yes, and then we need to know the laws that protect these people when they make this decision to call out their employers. And you talk about the compensation. What is the time frame? How long? Oh, isn't it going to take 5 years, 3 years? He also mentioned that sometimes these cases take very long. But we'll definitely have him again to shed more light.